Good evening. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio, and I'm your host, Winifred Adams. And I say thank you for coming back and listening yet again. We have a compelling show for you tonight. Thank you for listening in to author Joe Holt last time. And you can find us on Making Life Brighter Radio. You can find us on Voice America, and you can find us on C-Suite Network. So tune in there and you can check out all the archives here and also on those stations as well. So if you would, please share and hit the like button because we have some really interesting shows upcoming for you. We have been, as you know, if you followed along, we've been touching on how we're looking for solutions in the world for things that are maybe fraudulent or amiss. And tonight is no exception for a very special show. So if you know someone who is currently in a foreclosure, or you know someone that is having trouble with their mortgage or a foreclosure type setting, this show is for you. And I invite you to share and to take this information far and wide because we are going to preview and premiere for the very first time a filing that was done just the other day that is going to set everything on its head. As a matter of fact, this show is all about Nesara and the truth behind the hidden law. So without further ado, please welcome special guest, Colonel Gregory Lewis Peck. Welcome, Mr. Peck.
Oh, thank you. But don't need to be quite that formal. Just call me Greg.
All right, Greg, thank you for coming tonight and for being with us. You are the author of this filing that went in the other day, and we're going to jump right in because this is a lot of information. And you have produced a filing that you filed in federal court. And explain to us what it is that you filed, first of all.
Well, okay, an explanation. My mother had passed away in 17, and then I went to sell the house and all that stuff, not really being aware of what you have to do that. And I found out that I had to go to probate and all that stuff. And in the meantime, they came up with a notice for foreclosure because my mother somehow managed to get into reverse mortgage. And so when they found out she died, the unlawful and unconstitutional and criminal agency known as HUD decided to enact a foreclosure. So I've been fighting that foreclosure since basically March of 2018. And have held them at bay for these last 3.5 years or almost 4 years. And of course, being who I am and my history and all that stuff, at a long time ago, back when they had horses and buggies, I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. So I had to study it through Blue Book to know what the Constitution said, and I knew that everything they were doing was unconstitutional, but I didn't have any real smoking gun. That was just a matter of opinion at that point. It took me quite some time to realize that these questions had already been answered and had already been ruled upon in 1993 by the Supreme Court. And then they had assigned 5 judges to figure out how to fix the problem. And these 5 judges became known as White Knights, and they took them 7 years to create a system of correcting the problems that was referred to as Nesara. And that's how Nesara was born. And then come to find out that Nesara had actually been signed into law, was signed into law by none other than Bill Clinton.
When was that? When did that happen?
Thank you for asking. That happened in October 10th, 2000. So for the past 21 years, Nesara has been the law of the land.
And so
It's not something we have to wait for.
well, let's define Nesara first of all, because you filed, well, let's just tell people what you filed. First of all, you filed in federal court, you filed a complaint or a lawsuit?
No. This lawsuit was originally filed in 2018. It's been ongoing since 2018. And of course, the bank, NOVAD, and HUD, and other agencies are part of that filing.
And so they ended up.
They're the defendants.
But they're listed in this document. Let's just talk about the actual document you just filed the other day. What's the difference of this document and what did you file, so people that are listening have an idea of that before they see it?
Well, Nesara, this document brings Nesara, the law, into the case, which before I hadn't done because I didn't know Nesara was already written into law.
I see.
They were supposed to implement. Sorry.
So Nesara has been something that everyone's been talking about lately, and they keep saying it's coming. What you're saying here is that Nesara has actually already been the law since Bill Clinton signed it into existence, but people don't know about it, and therefore it's not in the world. So let's define, first of all, what Nesara would be and what it's supposed to do for people, so they understand the value of it and why keeping it from people maybe has been a disservice.
Well, first of all, Nesara stands for National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Okay, that's well documented in the filing that I did on Friday, last Friday. And what I filed was a restraining order to be issued against the fraudulent foreclosure, because Nesara, what the justices had to do, Nesara comes from a lawsuit that was filed in the 80s and worked its way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled upon the lawsuit in 1993. I don't remember the exact date, but it was in 1993. Easy to look up because, believe it or not, this is all you can find it all on the internet when you do the study, when you do the research. And in that lawsuit was between the Farmers Union and the Farmer Investment Bank, whatever it was. And the evidence that the Farmers Union brought into the case, the Supreme Court ruled on almost unanimously that everything was a fraud and that everything was a lie and that the farmers won. That means the banking system, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, the everything that the foreign corporations that exist by foreign corporations, I will say that the foreign corporation is the United States of America Incorporated. When did that happen? Oh, that happened in 1868. That was there was a Scottish company, which means it had to be under the auspices of the king to be a Scottish company, King of England.
Yes.
They filed in Washington, D.C., they filed a incorporation, and the incorporation they filed was United States of America Incorporated. That was in 1868. In 1871, Congress adopted that under the 1871 Act. So the District of Columbia became the United States of America Incorporated.
Right.
And the Constitution, the second Constitution, became the bylaws of the Incorporated United States of America. And then they altered and changed a whole bunch of stuff to make it look good. Like the 13th Amendment became the Emancipation Amendment. That's not what it was originally. Under the organic original Constitution of 1887, the 13th Amendment forbid titles of nobility. And we can get into that later if you want to talk about that. But at any rate, in the judgment of 1993, They ruled that the Federal Reserve was fraudulent, that the banking system was fraudulent, the currency was fraudulent, the IRS was fraudulent. In other words, everything from the government right on down to the dog catcher was fraud, because it was all under foreign corporation, filed by a Scottish company, adopted by the Congress, and under the Crown. So we returned in 1871, we returned to a colony. And then all of the states had to incorporate. Go for California for a moment. The flag says Republic of California. So I ask you, what is the state of California incorporated? Where did that come from? And if you notice, the law doesn't say laws, it says statutes. The reason it says statutes in my non-lawyer language, the reason it says statutes is because they're not laws, they're bylaws for the corporation. And then there's a whole bunch of other things, how we became citizens of a corporation, artificial entities.
And so
Anyway,
the Nesara is supposed to remedy this? Was that the idea? So once the lawsuit was won or technically lost, these people didn't receive what they were supposed to receive. And so therefore, Nesara was the outcome of that particular lawsuit at the time, correct?
well, okay, not so that I understand what you just said. The Farmers Bank, I can go through and find, I don't want to waste the time to do that, but the Farmers Banking system that was doing the foreclosures on behalf of the Housing and Urban Development, which is a fraudulent, in the Nesara law, it actually states that HUD is a fraudulent entity. They have no right to foreclose. Zero, period.
So
And I
how are
wanna
they
also
still in
point out-
existence? How are they still operating then?
Because the Congress and the administration and the judicial are all puppets of the banksters. Banksters meaning bank gangsters. The cabal, the banking families.
And the foreign
I know
corporation.
these people, the foreign corporation,
How
the
do you know
Crown of
these
England,
people?
etc. Well, that's another conversation. I know of these people. I was actually invited 3 years ago to join the cabal.
Okay, explain that.
Oh, I don't
That's
think.
a weight to
How
drop
many
in the
hours
middle of
do
this.
you?
And did you?
I don't know how many hours you want to spend
Well,
having
wait,
that conversation.
we can't segue from that. What did you do and what happened?
Well, I met with supposedly somebody that was a representative of the cabal families and said, no, thanks. I couldn't do it because I'm restricted to do that, because in the position that I have in another conversation sometime down the road, it is irrevocable, uncontestable, and non-transferable. So that means if I were to sign into a group or organization where I could be outvoted, that would be the same as giving up or transferring the position, and it's non-transferable. So I couldn't join just by the mere assignment of my position in that particular organization.
Well, let me ask the question that's begging in the air. If you could, would you?
No,
Why?
because I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. See, there's another part that people got to understand, and I'm going to remind my brothers and sisters in the military. My job was never to protect the government. My job was never to protect the states. My job is not even to protect the people of this country. What I took an oath to protect was the Constitution of these United States, not the bylaws of some corporation. Every man and woman that puts on a military uniform and takes that oath, you're swearing to protect and defend the Constitution for the United States of America, 1787. Period. And all of that covers, which then covers the civilian population of this nation, not the citizenry of a corporation. Of course, I have always asked the question, how could you be a citizen of a corporation?
Yeah. How
How
can you
about
be a
being a
citizen?
citizen of Sears? Sorry.
No, say that again. How could you be a citizen of Sears?
Yeah, how can you be a citizen of Sears or a citizen of McDonald's or a citizen of Ford or a citizen of Bank of America? How can you be a citizen of a corporation? Oh, they have to turn you into an artificial entity. Oh, by your mother signing off for a certificate of ownership. What is that? Oh, that's called a birth certificate. State of California, if you're born in California, issues a birth certificate. What's a certificate? Ownership.
Yes. And then your chattel.
Got to prove who owns you.
Okay. So
Next
back,
question.
wait, we can't skirt off the cabal yet. Why did they come to you? Why would they ask you that to begin with? Why would they even invite you?
Knowledge.
The knowledge that you have, that you hold.
Yeah. We'll
And so,
just
okay, but
the total sum of the knowledge I have.
and when you refused them, what took place?
Well, I was informed that they would, I would rule the day that I turned them down, because they don't like being turned down. They think that they are omnipotent.
I see. And in that
Last time I
way,
checked, I'm not there. I'm not. They're not omnipotent. They're not God.
yeah. Um, wow. Well, that completely took me to the left or the right. Okay, so back to what you filed in Nesara, because you are here to talk about, and we'll get to the other ones later if you'll return. Well, I think those are bigger conversations yet to have, but I don't want to go off track because many people are suffering right now today, and many people have been
Absolutely.
suffering. So you have a solution to their suffering based on the filing that you did by saying that Nesara has been actually a law since Bill Clinton signed it into existence. And
Yes.
he did that, but he didn't tell anyone. So why not?
Well, because if this is announced,
Yeah.
then everybody would be out of business. There is a thread running through the patriot community, and God bless the patriots, God bless the Tea Party, God bless the militias. You're our last line of defense. The last line of defense is we the people. Second Amendment, in order to provide a well-regulated militia, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. What part of infringed do these people not understand? That was put in there because our forefathers, God bless them, knew what it meant to be unarmed and face the wrath of the king. And they were not going to allow that to happen again.
So in this case,
So when I've been fighting this case, and I've been fighting other cases, I've been doing this fight since roughly around 1973, because I began to understand that these things, that this bureaucracy government tells you you must do these things. Oh, okay. We got to obey the government. Well, the sheeple think that they have to obey. So I started not obeying because I knew that I knew that there was a different set of rules called the Constitution. You can't shut me up. I have the right to free speech. etc. You can't tell me what to do and not do. You can't tell me I can't have a gun. You can't tell me I can't defend myself. Praise the jury, praise God for that young man that was acquitted on all counts for defending himself.
The Rittenhouse trial.
But you silly sheeple don't have the right to defend yourself. You're supposed to be good little sheep and do what you're told.
Well, more than ever, we're seeing that right now. So how does this filing lend to that?
Well, this filing stops because here's the law. It's not something that's going to happen. It already happened. They just didn't tell you about it. Now I'm going to give you a little example here. If you go into court and you're being, which by the way is a waste of time because the courts are owned by the banks. The judges are owned by the banks. Never mind the fact that no judge should be sitting on the bench if he was ever a member of the bar. Read the original 13th Amendment, which is in fact on the internet. Just type in original 13th Amendment. If you want more information on that, take down notes, go to New Hampshire and to the House Bill 638, where New Hampshire studied the original 13th Amendment, found out it was the law of the land, and they changed their state rules that no attorney can be can hold public office because attorneys are not citizens or civilians of the United States of America Republic. Thank you. They gave up their citizenship when they joined the British Accreditation Registry, i.e. the bar.
So that's filed in New Hampshire, and do they carry
the whole
that through?
history of this was filed in New Hampshire. I believe it's House Bill 638.
Okay.
You
And
can
so
find it.
what
So
you just
then, don't mean to step on your toes there, but so then a few days ago, still trying to figure out how in the world I can, because all I had was opinion. All I had was literature, and I couldn't find the smoking gun. And then one night I was talking to somebody and I said, there's got to be a way to find this. And it hit me. So I went and I looked, and sure enough, there it was. When this thing became law. It was done March 29th, 2000. Congress, the House and the Senate passed the legislation with some oversight by the U.S. military. Remember, we're supposed to protect the Constitution. And everything that they do under these foreign corporations is unconstitutional. So then they took it over to President, and I use that term very loosely, Mr. Clinton, and he had to sign it. So it became a matter of law the minute he put ink to paper.
Why would he
And
sign
then
that?
it was supposed, because he was being politely compelled by the U.S. military to sign it into law.
How do you know that?
Failing to do so, well, because that's what the record shows, failing to do that would have been an act of treason against the Constitution, punishable by death. That's what it says in Nesara. Everything that they do that's against the Constitution, it says repeatedly, act of treason, punishable by death. Correct?
Well, that means then that HUD and these other entities that are even the lawyers and everyone involved with, say, a foreclosure or something like that would be, anyone ruling on that could be held liable, since they would know.
Yeah, if a judge,
that's a law already in place, correct?
yes, they know it. They damn sure know it. If a judge is a judge and he doesn't know what the law is,
Wow.
what do they tell us when we don't know what the law is? They say, well, ignorance is no excuse. Oh, well, then what are you doing being a judge and you don't know this law exists? Oh, the reason they don't want to acknowledge the law exists because they don't want to enforce it. Because why? The minute they enforce it, that means mortgages, credit cards, all this debt is gone.
Well,
how are they going to foreclose? Go ahead.
No, please go ahead. How are they going to foreclose?
How are they going to foreclose on something that was unconstitutional and unlawful? The Supreme Court ruled, here's another one. Here's a question for you. Go look it up. The Supreme Court's ruled hundreds of times that a lien is not title. So how do they have a lien, which is a mortgage? How do they have that lien, right? And then they somehow have these miraculous foreclosure masquerades, and voila, the bank takes back the property, which you never really owned in the first place, and resell it when all there was a lien, and that had nothing to do with title.
Yes, and they sell it again and again. It's hard for people to keep up and follow the steps, and not all of it is legal. Not all of it is lawful. And well, from what you just said, none of it's lawful. But I mean, the way they're going about it is borderline harassment to people as well.
None of what this system does is constitutionally lawful.
So what do you propose? What will happen then? Since you filed this, what to expect at this point?
Absolutely nothing is going to happen. And the reason I say that, until the American public, we the people, stop being the sheeple of these gangster bankers and the cabal and all the rest of this criminal activity, until the time comes that we the people stand up and say enough, they're going to continue business as usual. I was in a situation, little sidebar, in another country, dealing with something that involved the World Bank. And I won't go through the rhetoric, but Dave, guy at the World Bank, told me that they knew about the issue, who I am and who I was there representing.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. They were not going to give up control. I.e., it doesn't matter what the court says. It doesn't matter what the government says, because they're not going to give up control. Screw you people. You're nothing but smurfs, nothing but servants. That's what, oh, by the way, that's what citizen means. Look it up. Citizen means slave or indentured person.
Okay. Well, in that case, now that you have filed this, what is your next step? What's the next point here?
Well, theoretically.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Now I've lost track where I was.
Oh,
what was I saying?
We were talking about now what? Now that you filed this, now what's to happen? Basically.
Okay. Here's basically, this document was my filing for a restraining order. Notice I didn't say temporary restraining order. I'd like to point to your attention and to the audience attention when they look at this, which you understand that they will be able to see this at some point. It says petitioner, plaintiff, civilian, and prosecutor.
Okay, now wait a minute.
I'm the prosecutor.
Let me stop you right there really quickly. For those of you that are watching and you want to follow along right now and you want to actually see what this is, go online and look up the Truth About Nesara, Nesara -Gesara, GESARA.com. So the Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com is where he's posted this, and you can see the document and follow along right now in terms of what's been filed, and you can read the whole thing, including the history of Nesara, which is really, truthfully, Greg, this is a extraordinary effort and an incredible body of work. If people read through the whole thing, it is absolutely Stunning. I mean, everyone should really read this and educate themselves according to what you've proposed here and what you brought to the light. So, excuse me, now we'll go back to what you were saying. It says petitioner, plaintiffs, civilian prosecutors.
Okay, prosecutors ex parte petition for order restraining foreclosure of
Proceedings against real property, petition ending the fraud of the foreign corporation, and United States of America, Inc. at all foreign corporate states, Inc. Petition for emergency restraining order against the fraudulent and unconstitutional HUD, Department of Housing, Urban Development, criminal foreclosure sale. Let me just interject quickly here. To the left of that, you filed this in many places. So tell the audience where you actually sent this out to, all the places that have received this now.
Well, I've notified the DOJ. I've notified the Joint Chiefs. I've notified the U.S. Marine Corps of treasonous activity. I've notified, that's Semper Fi. I've notified HUD. I've notified NOVAD, which is a government agency masquerading as the agency that's supposed to be private dealing with HUD. And I've notified Jason Tatman and Rhonda Rohi, which are supposed to be the bar foreign agents that are handling the foreclosure, foreign agents trustee that are handling the foreclosure sale.
And
so everybody's been notified.
What do you expect from sending it to all those locations in those places? What do you expect from them regarding this? Just that they've been notified, or that they should do something?
Well, they are committing an act of treason.
Who
they
is?
Either knew everyone.
Okay. And so
okay, think about this. If this is a law that was passed and signed October 10th, 2000, then anybody perpetrating this fraud is committing an act of treason, punishable by death. And very specifically, military, death by firing squad. And I think that should be done in a grand gallery and selling hot dogs and popcorn for the entertainment value.
Well, it's
because
definitely
for 150 years, we've been lied to. I shouldn't have spent 30 years cleaning up the mess around the world. I should have spent the last 30 years, or not the last 30 years, but I should have spent that 30 years cleaning up the mess that's here, that we've been lied about. And because they didn't, because they didn't notify us, everything that they've done is a lie of omission. Because they didn't tell the American people that what they were doing was unconstitutional and fraudulent.
So what do you see as the next step? What will happen after this?
Oh, I probably am going to be dealing with this for the next 10 to 12 years.
Why do you say that?
Just about, well, because first, you're going to have to figure out where you're going to find justice. You can't find justice with these people running around in black robes because they're bought and paid for. Absolutely bought and paid for. The cabal is in full, complete control. President Trump, God bless him. For those that agree, great. For those that disagree, that's great too. Everybody's got the right to their opinion. See, people don't even understand what freedom means. They don't even understand how we have freedom.
Explain that.
They think, well, freedom. Freedom comes from will. Understand? What gives me freedom is my free will. God gave us free will. God himself will not interfere with our free will. So if God won't interfere with it, who are these yahoos to think they are gods and they can interfere and tell me what to do or not do? In a republic, every man and woman has the right to a vote, yes or no. If my vote is yes, I participate. If it's no, I do not participate. Demonocracy, my way of pronouncing democracy, is mob rule plus one. If you do not agree with the mob and you're outvoted, then you're compelled against your will to obey. That's demonic, because that's not what the Constitution says. You have the right to disagree, and you cannot be compelled against your will, your free will, to participate. End of discussion. This is not a dictatorship. This
Well, it
is
seems
supposed
like
to be a republic.
right now it certainly is mimicking sort of a
Yeah,
dictatorship. It's leaning in
yeah.
that
Where
direction.
does this addle-plated fool buffoon that's never done anything in the 47 years or 50 years that he was in Congress, where does he get off thinking that he's got the right to issue a mandate? Show me in any body of law where the President of the United States can create a law, i.e. a mandate, and then enforce that mandate. Show me where that happens.
And so why do you think nothing's being done about this across the land, or is it?
Well, the only way that this is going to correct itself, one of my other attributes is I happen to be mathematician. And I
Yes,
don't want
you
to
have
get into
several.
that right now.
Well, tell people your degrees. You have several degrees.
Oh, come on. That's really not connected to this. But simple, degree or not, just simple math. When was the last time that 90% of something can outrule or outvote, 10% of something can outrule or outvote 90%? The real power, the real strength, the real force in this country is we, the people. Not we, the sheeple, but we, the people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any rights unless you stand up and defend those rights. You don't have any will unless you stand up and say, this day is, I say no. The greatest hero that I think of is Mahatma Gandhi. One man stood up to the colonial empire of Great Britain, said, nope, not today. One man stood up and said no. One man broke the colonial empire of Great Britain.
Without a gun.
And without a gun, in meditation.
Right. Yes. In stillness.
And you can't get two people here to care about the fraud that these people are committing. Oh, well, that's the government told us. I guess we just have to shut up and do what we're told. Boy, that's not what our founding forefathers did.
They didn't have a choice. You come to a
Well,
new
we don't
land.
now. Yeah,
Well,
we don't now.
Now is the time. So since we're on this part of this topic, and we'll come back into the Nesara law, what do you propose as a solution from your point of view and your experience?
Okay. People are the power. If the people of this country want to have an America, then it's about time they stand up and claim the America it's supposed to be.
And
If
how
they
would they
don't,
do that?
very simply, you just stand up and say, no, I'm no longer going to participate under this fraud. No, you're no longer going to have these unlawful, unconstitutional foreclosures, these unlawful, unconstitutional mortgages, these unlawful and unconstitutional mandates. You will no longer violate the Constitution of the United States of America. republic. I don't give a damn what happens to the corporation. The corporation's bankrupt. The corporation is unlawful. The United States of America Incorporated is a fraudulent, treasonous organization that has been for the last 150 years, round numbers, defrauding we the people. The Federal Reserve was never ratified, never passed by Congress. There was a book written called The Law That Never Was, and it talked about the IRS and the Federal Reserve never actually passing Congress. There was nobody there to vote on it.
Oh,
And that book was banned in the United States when it was written. I learned that 35 years ago. See, I've been fighting this fight, but didn't know the end of it. Now I know the end of it. It's already, you don't have to wait for it, folks. It's already law.
and so
All you
how
got to
would
do
that
is
come
stand up.
forward? Now
Well,
you
it's
put this
easy.
out there, and can people join you in this?
Oh, yeah. All you got to do is do a joinder to the case.
And well, I guess they could reach out to you at the website that was mentioned, the Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com. So the Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com. And of
Yeah,
course,
just
now they
go
have
there
your
and
phone number from this from this interview,
Oh, is that
because
what that is?
we couldn't get you logged
Yeah,
on
yeah.
properly. Yeah, so you'll be changing that soon, but no, everything's on the website, I guess, too. So, but let's go back to the actual filing in the document for a minute, because we could, well, gosh, there's so much we could talk about, and I hope to carry on this conversation because you have a track record and a history that's very unique, and it plays into not only
Oh,
experience, yeah, not only experience, but also the perhaps solutions, and that people are not acknowledging. And I'll leave it there for now. We'll come back to that. But given this that you have filed, what do you expect to see from this? What do you expect that will happen in both your case and anyone else's because of this?
you join this filing and you enter this into your foreclosure and you bring up Nesara. You got to do that before the foreclosure sale. See, I did that at the last minute because tomorrow, theoretically, they're supposed to sell the property. It's going to be kind of hard. In foreclosure sales, once they sell the property, the person that's just been thrown out of their property has 10 days to file a lawsuit challenging the foreclosure. Now, I've been preemptive because I filed the lawsuit back in 2018. So that lawsuit is still going forward. Now, they basically disregarded me because even though I'm the only heir to my parents' estate, my mother and my father's estate, I'm the only heir. My father passed away years ago, and my mother just passed away. That didn't matter. I fought probate, who's supposed to protect the estate. I fought them for 3 years.
Yeah.
I finally got the letters of authorization. So I'm finally the executor of the estate. Now, when I filed the lawsuit, the HUD and all that agency and all that stuff, they disregarded the lawsuit because I was an uninterested third party. How does the heir to the estate become the uninterested third party? Well, that's the fraud of the legal system.
Hmm.
So you don't really have inheritance. You don't really have heirship, because that would mean that you're going to actually benefit from the hard work of your parents and your ancestors. Can't have that. Got to keep you humble and broke and serfs.
Mm-hmm. So
Can't
in other
have
words,
you owning property.
yes, that's the
So
premise.
I finally got the articles so that I am now the administrator. So I filed this restraining order. Now, this is what happens theoretically. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of probably attorneys that would love to argue with me. That's okay. I don't give a shit. The sale happens tomorrow, let's say. Well, when they get the investors at the courthouse steps here in California, they have a little bidding thing, and one investor will bid against the other, and the highest bid takes the property, theoretically. Okay, well, here they got a problem because there's already a lawsuit. Now I have a restraining order that I'm requesting or petitioning for, that they've all been notified. So tomorrow, when they go to sell the property, true transparency would be to notify the investor that's bidding on the property. Oh, and by the way, there's a lawsuit that's been running for 3.5, 4 years, and maybe you ought to be aware of that. Oh, and by the way, there's been a request for a restraining order restraining this illegal act. They probably aren't going to tell them that. They're going to sell the property. So when they sell the property, that new person that thinks they bought title, which they didn't, because they also have to wait 10 days to get made up manufactured title from the foreign corporation saying that they own something. So you got that 10-day window. Well, I've preempted that. So now if they don't disclose that all of this legal stuff is hanging in the balance, then there's no transparency in the contractual arrangement that the investor had with the seller. So now the investor, I've given them an ability to go back to HUD and HUD's criminal enterprise and demand their money back because they weren't told, most likely will not be informed, that there's an ongoing legal action against them on this property.
Wow.
So that negates the sale. Never mind the fact that they're being charged with treason. The minute they sell this property, they would be able to be incarcerated for treason by the U.S. military.
That's powerful, what you've put out there now. And for others who may not be as savvy in this as you are or as versed in it, but through the website that you posted and put out there, people can reach you, correct? And people can consult with you about this or join along.
They can hear my opinion, and I'll do whatever I can to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But
well,
I know of people that have been fighting foreclosures for 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
There's a good old boy network of guys like me. I'm as far as my age, I helped Noah build his boat. I'm an old guy. I still got a good fight left in me. Trust me.
Well, you've certainly put
one thing, I was in February 15th, I believe, of 2019, Trump said that there was an invasion at the border. What people don't get, and I don't even know if it's appropriate for me to say this, but what people don't get, when he used the term invasion, that put the U.S. Marine Corps on alert. Now, I'm sure some of these political generals and other assholes that are up there pretending like they still have honor would disagree with that. But I spent 30 years with brothers and sisters that paid the price for our freedom. I'm here today because brothers and sisters paid the price for my life. Anyway, back to February. I get a call, and I was asked by the general to come visit, have a cup of coffee. I'm an old guy. I was burned and disavowed in 2013. So I go there and say, "Hey, how you doing there, bud?" He says, "Raise your right hand." I said, whoa, wait just a minute. Raise my right hand. What are we doing here? He says, "You're going to take your oath." I said, "Hey, I'm an old guy." He said, "Did you see an expiration date on your oath? The only way you're out of that oath for you past enlisted people, for you past officers, the only way you're out of that oath is you pay the price. And the price is blood. That oath was until death. Hoorah. Semper Fi.
And so you raised your right hand to take the oath for what?
I went from a lieutenant colonel, burned, disavowed, to a colonel, and given field command. Imagine that. Me at my age, I'm going to be out on the streets. Should this go to full-blown martial law? It's only temporary. It's only pseudo martial law now. We're in control, but only on the fringe. It's not really public. I'm going to be standing there facing my fellow Americans. That's something I didn't know I was signing up for, but that's what it's come down to.
Wow, that's powerful. I guess that explains the colonel.
Yeah, well, trust me. Again, my only obligation is to defend and protect the Constitution and all that protects and defends. So if people want to protect their house, and people want to protect their lives, and people want to protect their freedom, then it's about time they get off their couch, Mr. John Q. Sixpack, and get your ass out to stand up and it's not my job to defend your rights. It's your job to defend your rights. I will help you do that, but don't look to me to change your diapers. You want rights, you want freedom, you want liberty, you want to own your property, you want to put an end to this corruption, then get off your ass and stand up and go out there and say, no, this is not going to happen. You want to do that? Join the movement. Don't play lip service to it. I applaud the guys that came down a few years ago. There was a move against the cattle rancher there in Arizona or Nevada, whatever it was. And the BLM was marching in there, and the ATF, whoever the ATF is, was moving in there to throw this guy off the land that his family had been grazing cattle on for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to throw him off the land. He's still there today. Do you know why he's still there today? Because members from 3 different militias, state militias, showed up on high ground and said, not today. My job is not to protect and defend people sitting on their couch not doing nothing. My job is to protect the Constitution with men and women that'll stand up and protect their rights. And here's another thing. Just one last thing on my rant. The Constitution doesn't apply. Why? Because you didn't sign it. When was the last time you were part of a contract you didn't sign? Number 1, Bill of Rights doesn't apply. Why? You didn't sign it. Declaration of Independence doesn't apply. Why? You didn't sign the contract.
Did you?
Tell you what I did. I got a copy off the internet. Imagine that. I got a copy. I signed the Declaration of Independence, and I'll explain that in a minute. I took it down to a notary to put it in the book the day I signed it. That's now a live document. That's not just something sitting in the Smithsonian. Then I took the Bill of Rights and I signed that. Bang, it's a live document, not something written 200 years ago. It's alive and well now, notarized. Then I signed the original Constitution. And the last lawful act of the Constitution Amendment was the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was never ratified. So I signed the original Constitution, notarized it. Boom. It's now a signed contract.
Mhm.
Now, the Declaration of Independence, last thing I want to teach anybody today. I thank you so much for your kindness for letting me rant. But the Declaration of Independence said we are endowed by our Creator with unalienable, i.e., unalienable rights. Now let's look at that statement. An endowment. An endowment is not owned by the beneficiary. An endowment is owned by the one who created the endowment. So God created the endowment. We are endowed by God with rights, unalienable rights. So if he owns them, we're just the beneficiaries and are entitled to use them.
Right.
But if he owns them, who on this planet has sufficient authority to remove that which God owns? That's what that's why they gave it, we're supposed to give it to the King of England. You don't have authority to take away what God has given. Last time I checked.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So excuse me very much. This idea that they take away a right and grant it back to you as a privilege. When was the last time that the created become greater than the creator? We, the people, created this mess we call government.
Yeah.
It didn't create us. We created it. Time to take this back and say, hell no, not today. You know, we're real good at telling some dummy coming down the street, F you and the horse you rode in on. Well, it's about time we tell these bureaucrats, F you and the horse you rode in on. Mr. Trump kept saying, deep state, deep state, deep state. Well, the deep state is infested the bureaucracy, but that doesn't really do them any good under the Nesara, because the bureaucracy is unlawful, unconstitutional, and illegal as it stands. You read the Nesara, it says the president, the vice president, the Congress, and every state legislature, every governor, every mayor, they're all guilty of treason against the Constitution. End of story. Not my opinion. That's the law. Get off your ass. Go read it.
On that note.
Other than that, have a nice day. We can sing around the campfire and sing Kumbaya.
Well, I don't think we're going to be up for that much in the coming future. But on that note, your actual filing is so important because you're giving people the opportunity to take advantage of what you found out. And that is that Nesara and all the things about Nesara, which are listed in here in this important filing that you've done, are spelled out, but they're available to understand so that you can see that this was already in motion, but it's not come forward for the benefit of the people. So there is no benefit.
Announced.
Yeah. So if it's announced now, the thing that you're saying is that it's been there all along and it hasn't been announced. Therefore, the people have missed out on taking advantage of that. So why do you think they haven't announced it? What is the point in that not coming to light so far?
Well, the reason they didn't announce it is because by announcing it, they would be admitting they're out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't do that because the cabal and the banksters, as it was told to me about 3 years ago by the World Bank, that they're not giving up control. It doesn't matter what you do in court because the courts are bought and paid for by who? The banksters. Even in the Nesara, it says credit card debt is unconstitutional. Isn't that amazing?
Wow. Well, that would turn everything on.
The reason it is unconstitutional is because it's based upon an unlawful act.
What's the unlawful act?
The foreign corporation. How about this? In the Constitution, it says the only lawful tender is gold and silver.
Right.
So what are these promissory pieces of paper written by the Federal Reserve or created by the Federal Reserve? Some promise to pay some point in the future of some value. How about this? You go and you get a mortgage. You get a loan for your house, supposedly. And you sign all this, oh, I don't know if I'm going to qualify. And all you get is a promise. What people don't understand how that even happens. The bank creates all this illusion, then they send the paper to the Fed. The Fed sends the paper to the Treasury prints the money, puts it back in an account in your name, then the bank withdraws it and pays it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
You already paid for the property, but then they pay. See, but the bank is the one that owes the debt to the Fed, to the Treasury, and to the Fed. So the bank tricks you into paying off their debt. Get it? So the interest you're paying is really the interest the bank's supposed to be paying. So they not only conned you out of the ownership of the property, they also conned you into paying their debt.
Well, if what you've done here upsets the apple cart and really does call into question all those that are in this system with day jobs within the system, that could really
They're
put a
out of
ruffle.
job.
What's that?
They're out of job.
Yeah, they won't be.
I'm so heartbroken.
Well, there's a significant amount of the work sector that would be affected. So the change that you're seeking would somehow
Put
have
an
to
end
be,
to it.
yeah, it would be calling a close to the transition. I'm getting at the transition it would take to move out of something into something else could be a little bumpy if that many people, and I guess it also speaks to the fact that how many of those people know what they're doing?
Well, that's why if people are interested, we can help them along their way.
All
It's
right,
real
well,
easy to understand. It's real easy to understand. If you can understand Dick and Jane went up the hill, then you probably can understand Nesara, because it's pretty well laid out in plain English. Everything they've done is a fraud. Maxim of law, nothing can be gained from fraud. Fraud doesn't happen from when you discover it. Fraud happens from when it was created. The thing that is the most humorous to me is Honest Abe. Honest Abe Lincoln. Boy, he was a hero. He was an honest man. Guess what? He was the biggest lying piece of shit that ever walked the planet.
why do you say that?
Because he's the one that allowed this. He's the one that actually put this in motion. He's the one that changed the 13th Amendment from being an amendment against titles of nobility to being the Emancipation Act, which is a lie. Now, as far as anybody that's had property foreclosed since 1910 can get restitution. All you got to do is file a claim with Nesara against the Treasury,
Well, that'll
because they
get
had no
people.
business foreclosing on your property. And that is stated in the law. And another little gift that I'll give, if people are interested, I actually have the Nesara law. I believe it's 22 or 24 or 20. Yeah, it's 22 pages. If they want to actually read what the Nesara law is and how it works, I have it.
Wow. Well, on that note, we have to close, but I'd really like to have you back again. And so people can find you at the Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com. The Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com. So I have to say it, Colonel Gregory Lewis Peck, thank you so much for being with us tonight here on Making Life Brighter and making other people's lives brighter by bringing a solution to the table, and certainly an educational solution for people that didn't even know this existed and now have that much more. So thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you've done.
Oh, don't thank me. Please don't thank me. You don't know what I've done.
We'll get into that next time. And
Yeah.
sounds
God
like you
bless.
have a body of
God
knowledge.
bless America.
Yeah.
Well, most of which I wish I didn't know.
Well, in this case, we'll focus on the positive going forward. You do have a solution here for people, and that solution is a viable one. So go check it out, everybody. Go read that. Thank you for listening, and
Can I
please
make one
share.
more? Can I make one more statement?
Sure.
I thank you for the courage and the integrity to grant this interview.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we seem to have a track record for trying things on that are unusual here at Making Life Brighter, and or championing that which is a viable cause for a better world. I'd like to think of it that way, really. And it's not always easy. I can attest to that from being hacked to high holy hell and back for the last year, but you know, that's the price you pay for telling the truth and putting it out there, whether people like it or not. So
And the
thank you.
truth shall set you free.
There you go.
God bless.
Thank you so much. And go jolly, everybody. And please share. So we'll talk to you really soon. We'll follow up with more. We have more to this story, and we will be unfolding that. So go to the Truth About Nesara-Gesara.com, read the actual filing there, and you can contact him there as well. All right, go jolly, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.